And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and as always, it's great to have you guys here on this Monday. We have a lot to talk about on today's show, but before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/GSMCsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show and makes it more interactive between me, the host, and you, the viewer. So once again, the link is streamelements.com/GSMCsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it is also displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment. So with that, let's get into what we will talk about. So we're not going to go through every single game today because there were so many wild finishes yesterday. We're kind of going to space them out throughout the week. So with what we'll talk about today is first we'll talk about the Texans upsetting the Bengals yesterday. CJ Stroud outdueling Joe Burrow in that contest. So we'll get into that in a little bit. Then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about the 49ers and their dominating performance over the Jacksonville Jaguars. And it seems like the 49ers might be back. In the third part of the show, we'll talk about the shootout between the Lions and the Chargers. And then we will preview tonight's game between the Buffalo Bills and the Denver Broncos. So also, if you noticed, my nose sounds very nasally today, and my allergies acting up this weekend. So that's why I kind of sound the way I sound at the moment. So bear with me. But like they always say, the show must go on, and we got a great show today, of course. So that's not going to prevent me from being able to do the show today, of course. So, but hopefully, towards the end of the week, I won't sound as nasally. But listen, it's that time of the year, and it's just something I got to deal with for the next couple of days. So, hopefully, I get better soon from it. But whatever. Let's get into these games now. So, obviously, the first segment, CJ Stroud and the Texans upsetting Joe Burrow and the Bengals. Now, I did pick the Bengals on Friday. Texans were getting 6.5. But I don't know. I just kept saying I don't know if I could do it. I think I'm going to lean towards the Bengals just because they've been the hottest team, one of the hottest teams in the NFL. We'll see. The Bengals actually were without T. Higgins in this game. They definitely missed him at points during the game. But CJ Stroud and the Texans, man. Stroud had a great game. 23 of 39, 356 yards, 1 touchdown and a pick. That actually was only his second interception on the season. I mean, his touchdown to interception ratio is still very good. 15 touchdowns to 2 picks. And also another surprising thing, Devin Singletary, 30 carries, 150 yards, and a touchdown in this game. That was the best game of his career. And they were without Dameon Pierce. So he had a good game. Texans ran the ball for almost 200 yards in total. 188 yards on the ground. Noah Brown was their leading receiver. Last week against the Bucs, had a good game. This week, same thing. 7 receptions, 172 yards. And their second leading receiver was Dalton Schultz. Tank Dell, he had a touchdown in this game. Joe Burrow on the day. 27 of 40, 347 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. The Bengals really didn't run the ball that effectively, only 66 yards on the ground. Joe Mixon had a rushing touchdown in the game. Jamar Chase, a good game, of course, 5 receptions, 124 yards, and a touchdown. Tyler Boyd was their second leading receiver, 8 receptions for 117 yards. Trent Irwin, who got more targets in this game, he had 2 receptions. Trenton Irwin, sorry. 2 receptions, 54 yards, and a touchdown. So he was more involved, obviously, with T. Higgins dealing with his injury. But yeah, I mean, this game, Bengals got off to a fast start, going 10 plays, 75 yards, almost 5.5 minutes off the clock. Burrow connected with Trenton Irwin for a 32-yard touchdown. So you thought, maybe this might be a rough game for the Texans. Both teams punted. Texans then ended up fumbling. Bengals got the ball back there. That was actually on 4th and goal. They went for it, and that was recovered by DJ Reader. Bengals then punted in the second quarter. Texans answered to tie the game. 7 plays, 66 yards. C.J. Stroud connecting with Tank Dell for the 6-yard touchdown. So that tied the game in the second quarter. Bengals punted. Texans fumbled again in that game. Stroud got sacked, and Bengals were able to recover the fumble on that. Then they did kick a field goal, so they were up 10-7 at the half. Then they opened up the second half with a field goal. Then they got a touchdown. So it was 20-7 at one point. The Texans were up. And then the Bengals, they kicked a field goal. They were down 10. Then Burrow connected with Jamar Chase on that long touchdown, 64 yards. Then the Texans answered with the touchdown of their own to put them up by 10. Stroud had a rushing touchdown there. That was from 8 yards out. So you go into the fourth quarter. Burrow threw 2 picks in the fourth quarter. And then C.J. Stroud threw his second pick on the season. And that was like in their own territory. And that led to the Bengals going ahead. Joe Mixon scored a touchdown. So that put the Bengals up by 3. Or no, they were down by 3, sorry. Down by 3. Then they tied the game with 37 seconds. Took 37 seconds off the clock. McPherson made a 31-yard field goal. And then C.J. Stroud, 6 plays, 55 yards. Got down the field. And Amendola, 38-yard field goal to win the game for the Texans. And yeah, I mean, like, they were throwing it in their own territory. That set up a touchdown. And, then the Bengals got the ball back, tied the game. So if that pick doesn't happen, I mean, then it doesn't get to that point. But the Texans, they pull out the win, a very unlikely win. And I mean, going into this game, like I said, the Bengals were one of the hottest teams in the NFL. The Texans have been a great story so far, and now they're 5-4 at this point in the year, and I don't think anybody really expected that. C.J. Stroud continues to play well. And now they find themselves in a wild card spot, I believe. They have right now, I think they currently have the third wild card spot at the moment in the AFC. And yeah, they do. They're behind the Steelers and the Browns. They're ahead of the Bengals and the Bills. So like, Texans, listen, they could definitely make the playoffs at this point. They're playing really well on offense. Like, their young receivers have been good. Dalton Schultz has started to play well for them, the tight end. Getting production out of their running game was huge yesterday. Because Dameon Pierce has been disappointing, and now he's hurt. Now you got Devin Singletary, who you wouldn't have expected to rush for 150 yards in the game. I mean, you forced Joe Burrow into 2 interceptions. I thought the Bengals would win this game. But the Texans, because the Texans, they had like that miracle win against the Bucs last week, so you thought like this would kind of be a letdown for them, but no, I mean, they keep rolling, and this team going forward, you got young wide receivers. I mean, your quarterback is playing at an MVP level. I mean, like I said, 15 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. I mean, that is a fantastic touchdown to interception ratio. I mean, with what some of the other teams are doing in the AFC, with what happened yesterday, I mean, and depending on what the Bills do tonight, you kind of like the Texans right now. So we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. But even if they don't make the playoffs this year, it seems like they are going to finish with a respectable record. I mean, this is a massive step forward. I mean, you got to love what DeMeco Ryans is doing. The new head coach, of course. I mean, they definitely got a great chance to make the playoffs. As for the Bengals, this is a bad loss for them. Now on Thursday, we get one of the best Thursday night games this year. I mean, probably the best Thursday night game with the Bengals and the Ravens. Ravens coming off of a loss yesterday. The Steelers and the Browns both winning. Ravens and Bengals both losing. So, but we'll get into the Ravens game tomorrow. I'll definitely talk about that. So, but great game for the Texans. Congratulations to them on getting the huge, because that was a huge win yesterday. I mean, I like I said, I don't think anybody really expected that to happen, but we'll see what happens now moving forward. I mean, they're 5-4, they got the third wild card spot. I mean, listen, anything is possible, right? So, we'll just see. We'll see how it goes. And then, of course, again, we'll be gearing up for the Thursday night game between the Bengals and the Ravens. And, that game, again, especially with now both teams coming off of a loss, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. So, we'll see how it goes. But, a lot of crazy games yesterday, really. I mean, that's why I was like, you kind of got to break up the games into the shows throughout the week, because there were so many late finishes. I mean, a lot of these games came down to the final kick, and we're gonna get to all of them 100%. And that's just how this week has been. I mean, it's week 10, and we got one more game tonight. So, but gotta love what the Texans are doing early on. Really, you really do. Again, credit to their young quarterback. The coaching staff as well. I mean, they are playing great football right now, and they just beat a really good team, and that puts the rest of the AFC on notice. It really does. That was definitely a statement game right there for the Texans, because the Bengals have looked like one of the hottest teams in the NFL, and now, with the Texans beating them, I mean, that definitely puts the NFL on notice. Like, hey, Texans are legit. They are definitely legit. So, yeah. So that's pretty much it when talking about the Texans and the Bengals here. So with that, we're going to take our first break of the show. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about the 49ers and how they did yesterday in their game against the Jags. It was a rout, really. So stick around, and we will be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.